I really feel that God was preparing me before my dad passed away. Just spiritually, just in our family, just everything. I feel like he was in it and he was preparing me. And I feel like if it had been a moment sooner, I wouldn't have been ready. But it was just days before my dad passed away that
I'm Stephanie Harrison. Welcome to my channel. And today I have my granddaughter, Natalie, that's with me. And we're going to be talking about grief and how that actually looks for us. I know grief for everyone is different. I know we all suffer with grief in different kinds of ways. And with your father just passing away, actually January the 22nd of this year, and of course, Natalie lives in Thailand with her family. And we've been together for a few weeks now, and we've had a lot of time to share our hearts and how we're feeling about grief, how we're coping, how we're getting through it, and how we're going to get through it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure grief stays with us. I've heard for a lifetime. We've been kind of working through that together on our channel, talking about grief. So today we have we've posed some questions that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
That I just want to ask you, Natalie, how you're dealing with the grief of losing your father, and just want to get your input about that. So first question we really want to talk about is, how surprised were you on how how you would actually handle grief? When grief came, was there anything that surprised you about grief?
Well, it was really hard because, just 10 months before my father passed away, my grandfather, her husband, passed away. And so I felt a level of that kind of grief. But it was really different with my dad, because at least with my grandfather, I felt really excited for him. It was hard to lose him here, but I was like, he's free of pain, like he's happy, he's healthy, he's where we want to be. And so with my grandfather, I was really excited for him. Even though it was hard, I was excited. And with my dad, it was so shocking. He passed away of a heart attack at only 46 years old.
Yeah, he was so young.
Yeah, so it was really shocking. It came out of left field. And so it was really hard. One of the most surprising things about walking through grief for myself has been when you read about grief, there's 7 different stages of grief, and probably even more that we don't have written out everywhere. And I kind of thought, okay, well, I can do this, right? I'm at stage 1. I'll get to stage 2. I'll get to stage 3, and so on and so forth. I thought that it would go in order, and that when I went through one and I felt like I overcame it, that it wouldn't come back again. But I've come to realize that's not how it works.
And they're not necessarily in order either.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So that really surprised me. There's been days I've been in denial, and days I've been in acceptance, days I've been angry, all kinds of days. And so that's been really surprising for me.
Yeah, and I was talking with your mother this afternoon, and we were actually discussing grief. And she mentioned that fear was a big one on her behalf. The fear of probably forgetting his voice.
Yeah.
And actually, I have my journal here with me that I write in regularly. That I love to share how I'm feeling, or maybe write to my husband or to my son, and thoughts and feelings that I'm having. And I think that really helps me to get through it as well, or to not forget things that are really important to me. But it really stood out to me when she said the fear of forgetting what their voice is going to sound like, or forgetting a memory.
Yeah.
So I think we need to keep that alive. But shock was also one that stays with me regularly. It just comes kind of like in waves. Does it do that with you?
Oh, definitely, yeah. There's been days where I felt like this is not real. He's just working. I just haven't seen him in a little while. There's been days like that, and then there's been days where it's like, oh my gosh, my dad's not here anymore. I'll never be able to ask him another question. I actually find myself, when I face different situations in ministry or in life, where my first instinct is to call my dad. I've had that happen several times, where I'm like, I'm going to call my dad. And then I realize I can't call him anymore. I can't ask him for advice anymore. He can't answer any more of my questions, and that's been really tough.
How do you deal with that when you have that feeling that I can't really call my dad right now and asking this question, do you dismiss it from your mind, or?
No, it makes me really sad when that happens, but thankfully I have a lot of mentors in my life, and you're one of them. And so even though I don't have my dad still here to ask questions, I do have other people that I look up to, like you, that I can ask questions to. And so that's been really comforting and nice for me, just to have that community around me where I know I can go to someone, I can talk to someone, and still ask those questions. It might not be my dad's answer. Maybe my dad can't handle it on my behalf, you know, but I think it's good because it's made me stronger. It's made me have to be able to do it.
When you talk to your dad anyway and you didn't like his answer, you called me
exactly.
anyway, so, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, another really thought that I had that's surprising with me in the area of grief is unbelief.
Yeah.
You know, just the state of unbelief that I cannot believe this has happened. Not only losing my husband, but losing my son all in the same year, your grandfather, your father. But how unbelief sets in that you just, it's just so surreal that you just say, I cannot believe this, you know. And I have to just shake it off and pick myself up. I don't allow myself to fall in the grief of despair. I haven't allowed myself to do that yet. You know, and one beautiful thing about one of the tools that we use in solving a lot of our grief issues is having a relationship with God and finding ourselves in the Word or with songs of worship. That's probably one of our best tools. And then we have each other. It's so great to have family that, you know, you don't realize how much you need family till a family member's gone. And then you want your family all around you, and you really gain a lot of strength from that. So it's been great having you here this week.
Thank you. It's been great being here.
Thanks, Nat. Okay, in what ways has it been harder than you thought it was going to be?
Since losing my dad, the hardest thing has been people, to be honest with you. I feel like I had a lot of mentors and a lot of people that I really looked up to, and people that I even thought were closer friends. And in this time, it's really like shown people's true colors. And that's been heartbreaking because you go through the grief and loss of your dad, and then you go through the grief and the loss of like who you thought somebody was. And so that's been really hard. That's been the hardest thing during this season. I almost felt like in times I had to pause my grief for my dad, you know, because I was going through such a hard time and grieving these people I looked up to that really weren't there in our lowest times. But then also in the same way, you know, I've also had people there that I didn't think would be there in that way that were.
Always true, yes.
So it was pretty amazing how God put those people to fill in the gap for the people that I thought I had.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, I think of the word of expectations.
Yes.
You know, because you have expectations of whether it's in family or friends, you're expecting that this person's going to be there for you, or, you know, you're expecting that it's going to be this way. Like with your papa, you know, he had been sick for so long that I can remember, and you can't help what you think, but I actually could remember that, you know, my thoughts were when Mike does pass away, when the day comes and he passes away, I knew I would miss him. And I knew I would grieve for him, but I also knew that he had taught me how to stand on my own and how to be strong. So I literally thought, you know, I thought it was going to be different.
Yes.
So I had expectations that I had built up in my mind of how it was going to be. And then when he passed away, I'm going to tell you, everything that I expected, how I expected it to be, it was not that way at all.
Right.
So grief is really an emotion that sometimes you can't describe it. Because it's connected to a lot of other emotions. But you don't ever know how it's going to show up. Yeah. It's going to show up in all kind of forms, isn't it?
It is. And actually, it's been really crazy since like losing my dad. You don't realize the little things that trigger you or that remind you of them. Like, I mean, it can be the most random thing that you never thought of before, and all of a sudden it reminds you of them, and then you just break down crying out of nowhere.
Just break down crying out of nowhere, yes. The other day, your sister was following me, and I was following her into my bedroom, and she was just a few steps ahead of me, And all of a sudden, I just thought of Chris, and I burst into tears out loud. She turned around and she goes, "Nana, are you playing or are you serious?" Because I play with her so much, you know. And I said, "No, it's serious."
Oh.
You know, because it comes from nowhere.
Yes.
And that's the part of unbelief, or,
Yeah.
you know, the
Disbelief,
so surreal.
yeah.
Disbelief, the so surreal feelings. So it's kind of crazy, huh?
Yeah.
But, you know, I want to say this. Jesus said, "I'll never leave you or forsake you."
Yes. Amen.
And, you know, I don't know how many times in this year, more than in years put together, that I have called on him in a day's time.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I literally can't make it without Christ,
No.
without his word. And, you know, it's helped sustain me.
Yeah.
I can find joy in the middle of sorrow.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about that in a moment also. But God's word has been super sustainable. How do you like that word? Isn't that a good
That's
word?
great.
Super sustainable.
Yes.
Because it's kept me in the midnight hour. I've been able to go in and just say, you know, I'm not going to let this rob my sleep. I've had to make some decisions to, when your flesh tells you one thing, to let your heart tell you something else, and go with your heart and go with what God's saying to you. So I love that he said he'll never leave us or forsake us. He's
amazing, isn't
always here for us.
It's so true.
So let's talk about that. How do you find joy in the middle of sorrow? Have you done that?
Yes. Actually, you know, that's one thing I think people have actually commented to me too, is like, how can you still be joyful in this time? But the reality is, joy isn't a fleeting feeling. Joy is something that's embedded within you when you have Christ. Happiness is something that's fleeting. Sadness is something that's fleeting. But joy is something that always stays within us. And I found that I really feel that God was preparing me before my dad passed away. Just spiritually, just in our family, just everything. I feel like he was in it and he was preparing me. And I feel like if it had been a moment sooner, I wouldn't have been ready. But it was just days before my dad passed away that I felt different and stronger. And I've always made the decision to follow God in everything that I do. And so during this season, just having a purpose and a drive and knowing I'm carrying on Dad's legacy, I'm doing what God called me to do, he would be so proud of me. That is something that's really helped me through, and it's really encouraged me during this time.
Weren't you fasting also before he died?
I was. So a lot of people do fast at the beginning of January. Some of them do 21-day fast. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I hadn't really done a serious fast since I was maybe 10 years old. I maybe did a few days. But I committed, and I felt in the beginning of the year that God was calling me to fast. And I set it out to fast for 10 days. And I was really setting out to read the Word every single day. I've been studying the Bible chronologically this year. That was one of my goals.
Me too, yeah.
And so it's been really something special, just getting to read God's Word and finding so much, seeing so much more that I never saw before. And because God was preparing me and I was fasting, he was speaking to me also. And just being able to fill myself up with his word really just took me to another level. And so that really prepared me.
You know, I think you can, when we talk about having grief or joy in the middle of sorrow, you know, I think you can have it all at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, you can be real sorrowful and break out in laughter, and you can be laughing and it could actually turn into a cry.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if you've done that, but I've done
for
that
sure.
many times.
Yes.
Well, Natalie, how has grief changed your life?
Yeah. For me, I feel like it's given me more compassion. So you do feel for people when you hear they've had such a great loss or they've gone through something. But you don't know what grief is until you've really lost someone that you're very close to. And so during this time, I've learned to have a lot more compassion on people because also it's a good reminder that we don't know what everyone's been through. I was just thinking about it as I was on the plane traveling here that, you know, I don't know why I thought this, but I just kind of had the fleeting thought of like, no one even knows my dad's dead. No one even knows I'm on the way to the funeral. And I thought, what if there was someone that had a really bad attitude that you were just like, isn't that an awful person?
Right,
What
Natalie.
if they were on their way to their dad's funeral? You don't know. You have no idea what they've been through that day. So it really just
exactly
reminded me again to love well and to love over and above and love even when people aren't kind to us because we need to have compassion on them. We don't know what they're facing. And most people that are crabby and that seem some kind of way or seem angry at life, they're that way for a reason.
Right. Well, you know, I can remember when I would be driving your papa to the doctor's office, and there were times he would be so sick, and I was having to drive slow on the interstate because I couldn't turn very fast or slow. And people would just fly around you and shoot ugly signs to you and say ugly things to you, you know, and that'll make you have compassion because you think, you know, people have absolutely, you have no idea when you're going around someone like that and you scream at them, get out of the road, old lady, you know, what actually, you know, people are going through. But people can be very cruel, at heart. But I too learned that compassion for others, and I had compassion for people already because of different things that, you know, went on in my life, in my childhood. It taught me how to have compassion for others. But, you know, I think with grief, I had compassion for people when their loved ones died, for sure.
Of course.
But I could just say I understand it better now.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, grief has made such a change in my life, made such a difference in my life, not really for the bad. It's made a difference for the good. It's really changed my life a lot.
Yes.
And I'm expecting it to change it a lot more, honestly. But you know, another way that grief has changed my life is that I want to spend more quality time with people.
Yeah, that's
you know,
great.
You know, I feel like family, especially your church friends, people that you really love. You think I want to spend quality time with them because you never know when you're going to be with that person for the last time because you're not expecting that, right?
It's so true. You know, I've always been a person that's valued the quality time, photos and memories.
Yes.
And actually, I really got very passionate about that a few years ago. And that was because there was one year, it was the hardest year of my life, and I looked back on it after that year and I said, I have no photos. I have no memories. I don't even remember anything good from that year. And that made me really sad, and it made me say, whoa, I'm going to start making memories.
That's why you take so many photos now.
Exactly. And it's like, it doesn't matter what I look like. It doesn't matter what's going on. I want the photo for the memory. And I've really done that. I take photos for everything now. And I love that I have so many memories. I have 27,000 photos on my phone. That's not
great.
a joke.
I think you have more than me, Nat.
Probably.
That's great. Well, what is the most meaningful thing someone has done for you during this time of grief and losing your dad and your papa?
One of the best things you can do is just reaching out to the family and letting them know that you care. And one thing also I really appreciated was almost every single person that sent me like a condolence, they said at the end, please don't feel obligated to answer me back.
That's good.
I appreciated that because when you're in this time,
I felt like I failed some people, you know?
Yeah. And you have so many details to arrange, so much to handle, and you're also dealing with a loss, especially because we were overseas, and so it was a lot of paperwork. I appreciated knowing how loved we were, knowing how loved Dad was, and then also not having to feel the pressure of like, oh my gosh, I've got 200 things to respond to. And also another thing was a lot of people came to me and shared a testimony with me of something of like how my dad impacted their life. And that really meant a lot to me because it just showed how far his reach was. People I would have never, people that he went to high school with were messaging me saying, your dad changed my life forever and this is how. And so that was really cool to just see how big of an impact he made.
You know, with him making that big of an impact, makes me feel like we need to impact others people's life that way. That, you know, reaching out, sending a text, or loving people, sending a scripture, you know, just during the day when God puts someone on your heart, to just always reach out and love them well, you know, and what a difference that will make in their lives. We don't even realize how much of a difference.
And that's the key, Nana, reaching out when God tells you to. You know, I found myself recently hearing that still small voice telling me do something like pray for that person, do something in public, and I've been disobedient. And I felt really
Natalie.
convicted. I felt really convicted because I thought, how much does it mean to someone? Because God put them on your heart for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've had those times where God put someone on my heart randomly, just the most random person. I hadn't even talked to him forever. And when I messaged that person, they said, you have no idea how timely this was. You have no idea how I needed to hear that.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really important to remember to listen to God's voice and do that. Even if it's embarrassing, even if it's a stranger, it doesn't matter.
And to show the love of God, you know.
Yes.
Well, Mike and I used to always say, let's love people well.
Yes.
And that's a good way to love people well,
It is.
isn't it? It's really important. All right. Well, Natalie, what are other emotions that go along with grief that seem to stir up inside of us? Are there any emotions sometimes that you feel when you're grieving? Is there something else that pops in, and why?
Yeah, sometimes I feel angry. And it's for different reasons. You know, sometimes I feel angry because why did my dad have to go like so soon, you know? And then sometimes I'm angry at people, you know, pertaining to my dad's passing away. And sometimes I'm angry at my dad even. There could be unfinished stuff that you didn't get to say or do. And, you know, I'll say like, that's one thing occasionally, not a lot, but occasionally I would be like, oh, Dad, why didn't you do this? So I didn't have to. Like, that's been the season I've been in because everything is so different and changing. And now, like, with ministry being, like, passed down and everything, you know, there's certain situations that I've been like, why couldn't you have done this, Dad, so I didn't have to do this? Like, and it made me mad,
I hear
you know?
you, sister. Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I can really identify with that as well because we jokingly, I think your mom asked me the other day, is there anything you would like to say to Dad? And I jokingly said, yes, I would like to whip him right now. If I could have him back, I'd give him another spanking.
Yes.
You know,
Exactly.
because I felt like as his mom, I could really help him to take care of his health better. And it seems like I was always on Mike about his health, and until really the last year, I just said, okay, Mike, your health is your health, you know, and even though that's not why Mike passed away, of course, you know, it's just that I was always on him, controlling him about his health. And then I had some feelings about Chris. It's like, I wish I would have helped him control his health better. But you know what? You can't tell anybody anything.
No, you can't.
They're going to do what they want to do with their own body anyway, right?
My dad had a lot of people speaking into his life in that sense, and even like some of his staff members were getting him to go hiking a few days a week and stuff, so
Everybody
he was
was
starting
on
to
him.
make some changes, but it was the food and the Cokes and the chocolate that was his problem. And so
he died of a heart attack. And so that was very sudden at 46, which was very shocking to everybody, of course. Well, did you go back to work after grief?
Of course.
After the death and after all this happened?
Of course.
You never skipped a beat, did you?
No, you can't.
And you're a missionary in
I'm
Thailand
a
on the mission
missionary,
field. And so
it never stops. And I know you can relate to this too, because we both had situations where it's like, okay, something's happening in ministry, we have a sudden death, and now we got to take over. And so we can't stop for a second. I mean, it's almost like you had a lot on your plate, or you thought you did, and then it's like it's a whole new level, right? You can't stop because people are counting on you, and you've got to continue on
and
what
you want
God's
to.
called you to do.
You want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're kind of in the same boat. I mean,
We
you're
are.
in the ministry, I'm in the ministry,
Yes.
you're running a ministry there in Thailand, and here I'm serving at a local church, and so we both are just doing really the same kind of work, same field anyway.
Exactly.
And why would we want to stop? And you know what? It's helped me through
don't.
grief in such a big way to just keep working and keep loving people, keep serving God and ministering to other people for the Lord. And I know that's what Mike and Chris would both want. And you know, that really helps me with grief because I know how compassionate that they were about the Lord and the work of the kingdom of God. And, you know, I always hear your dad saying, come on, somebody. And Mike always prompting us that you can do it. Go the extra mile. You go, girl. And, you know, it brings great pleasure to me to continue in ministry, giving it all I've got for us and them, and for the Lord, of course.
Yeah, and we are experiencing grief, but we can't forget also our church members, our staff, our friends and family, they're also experiencing grief.
They sure are.
So we've gone through it, or we're going through it, and honestly, it can help minister to us, and it helps minister to them.
Absolutely.
For us to be there for them in this time, and we know how they feel, you know. So it keeps you going. It makes you happy to be able to share like what's helping you with others.
I'm glad you brought that up about our staff and our church family going through it with us, because I'm honestly going to say, I don't know if I could have made it first of all without the Lord, but secondly, how the Lord has poured through our church family.
Yes.
They have so been there for us and loved us so well. And, you know, I look forward to each service just to be with them. I love them so much. They are my family. And like you said, they have grieved too, so we've gone through it together. And then I see them being strengthened, they see me being strengthened, and so we just sort of pull on one another.
So
it's been
encouraging.
It's been really good. It
helps a lot.
But I've watched you hang in there, and you've done a fabulous job.
Thank you, Nana.
So God bless you.